We're on, man. So, welcome everybody to our Biodynamic Athletics podcast. I'm Mike Garcia. Today I have a very special guest here, all the way from Louisiana, Alexandria, Louisiana. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
There you go. We have Mr. Dr. David Remedios here, a doctor of physical therapy. He's owner and operator of the therapy company in Louisiana. So, Remedios, as we call you, right? How are you doing, man? It's good to see you. What's the word? How's it going?
It's going great. We've been doing great here in Alexandria, Louisiana. We've been kind of rock and rolling here. Started January with the company, and since then, I'm starting to have more clients refer other clients, which is pretty nice. So the word's getting out there, and we're starting to pick up some steam here.
Dude, that's awesome. I want to give the viewers here just a little background. So I met you when I started the BDA, my company. You were classmates with an old partner of mine, and you really helped us, man. You helped us with designing some of the first logos, helping us with some of the website design, with some of the ideas for, what the programs would look like. Because we were talking about how we're going to, we were throwing ideas around early on, what we wanted our business model to look like, or the biodynamic athletics to look like. And, we shared a lot of information. You really helped me out, man, in the very infant stage of the company, at least with a lot of the design and the logos and stuff like that. And man, I just want to say again that I couldn't be more appreciative. And I, thank you so much. And, I know that started the relationship that we have here. And man, I'm forever grateful for you taking the time while you're in DPT school. Man, I got to add that in there too, while you're in DPT school, to take the time out and to kind of help me with those things. So I am very grateful. I want to say thank you again. If I haven't said it, I'll probably feel like I'll never say it enough to you, man. And I really do appreciate you helping me out in that time, brother. So I want to get that out of the way.
Yeah, man, for you guys, it's no question. If you guys ever needed help with that sort of stuff, I would definitely jump up to help y'all. My path has been interesting because I have a creative background with a prior graphic design degree that I had before I ever was a PTA. So I was a PTA for about 7 years, decided to transition into University of Texas Medical Branch PTA to DPT program. And then from there, it's been the therapy coach since.
Yeah. And I wanted to talk to everyone about that and just kind of bring them in. So I'm glad you brought it up. So you were a PTA for 7 years. And they do offer a bridge program, right, through Galveston, the medical branch. So tell me a little bit about that journey. Let everybody know just kind of a little bit what that looked like, kind of that process, and how it is now that you're a doctorate. You went from an assistant, and now you have your Dr. Dave Remedios, man. So you can talk about that a little bit, kind of tell everybody what it's about.
Sure. Yeah. So whenever I initially graduated as a PTA, I was super excited, wanted to get in the field. And I wondered if there was any sort of transitionary step to bridge into physical therapist. And there was one accredited in the whole country, and it was way up north. And I knew I was not going there. So what happened was, over the years, I realized that I was starting to grow in my skill. And I got one job where I was working outpatient in the morning. And then I was working on the Toledo Bend Lakeside, seeing home health patients right along the lake. And that's the big man-made lake bordering Louisiana and Texas. Yeah. So this is a huge lake, and I was seeing patients right along the side. And then from there, I was treating athletes at Northwestern State University in Natchitoches, Louisiana, which is about an hour from where I live. So I would go to work watching the sunrise, and then I would go home watching the moon do the same thing. And I was happier than I've ever been. And that was the moment I realized I've got to do more with this thing. I want to go and be a physical therapist. And that's exactly what I did.
That's awesome, man. That's inspiring. I think, a lot of PTAs in the field, or people, even the general public, realizing like what PTAs do versus DPTs, and the roles are really important, right? And I think you nailed it when you say, you want to do more, with the credentials you have. And even now at this point too, PTAs, there's a wide option. You can do a whole lot with it. I think with your doctorate as well, there's a whole lot you can do with it. So with that said, I know, you didn't take the traditional route, man. You didn't go into an inpatient or an outpatient rehab, right? You decided to start up your own gig, and that's what you're doing now. So let's talk about that. The therapy company, right? The therapy company located at Alexandria, Louisiana. How long have you been open, man? How's that going? And what was that like?
So we've been open since January. Really, the vision behind the Therapy Co. was that, numbers and financials are good, but that is not the reason why we got into this business at all, actually. It's not driven by the amount of people that I see. Really, the quality care is what drives the entire business. Yeah. So when the patients walk into that door and they see me, the entire interaction from there on, they're getting quality care, they're getting my best, and that is what I'm delivering every single day. And that's what I'm going to continue to deliver on, because I believe that the quality of the patient care should be the main driver of the success. And that's how I approach things. So right now, it's actually paying off, because what happens is, because whenever you focus in on the patient care, they value you, and then the word of mouth gets out there. The quality really speaks for itself, and that's something I can be proud, and I can stand by my work every single day.
Yeah, I love that, man. That's a great mentality. It's a great work ethic. And, I think that one-to-one care, knowing that those clients come in, they see you, and you're not cookie cutting this stuff. You're not rolling crazy, sheets and log sheets, and we're doing this. It's very quality work. It's specialized for the individual. And, people notice that. I've noticed it in my field as well. Those athletes come in, you start to work with them, and everything's individualized for those people. And you build a lot of value in that. And I think people will gravitate towards you, man, over other places. That's a great job, man. Good job. Let's talk about the clientele. All right. So you have your outpatient clinic here. You've worked with athletes before in the past, right? So now I know we were speaking a little bit before we came on. I know you have a little category, right, that you've been working on that's keeping, right, they're flowing through your doors. So let's talk about that a little bit, man. What population are you seeing in your clinic more of, right? But also let's talk about some of the athletes you'll see too. So what are you based on?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So it's been a lot of variety. My dad is a doctor. We're in the same building, like literally connected. So it's very easy for him to send me a patient right over from his clinic after they get done with their end. The patient can walk right in, and they can have an evaluation same day as they have the referral. No problem. They can walk right over. And the same in reverse. Let's say if there's some reason that they need to see the doctor, well, I can send them right over to see my dad right next door. So awesome. That part's been pretty convenient. But it's kind of led to, the population. My dad sees a wide scope of varying degree of, between age and then type. So let's say mostly it's been orthopedic issues, a lot of low back pain, cervical pain, maybe some nerve root pathology that we've been able to see come in here. Right. But then also, more than that, we've seen a lot of, I've seen vestibular. I've actually had I had a newborn in the clinic show up. In this case, I had never seen a patient so young, literally 4 days old. They brought in, there was a patient, this baby had a brachial plexus injury from birth and had Erb's paralysis. The arm was in adduction, internal rotation, wrist was in flexion, full out Erb's palsy. Yeah. And it was interesting. I just applied the same principles that I would for an older individual. That baby had symmetrical motion by the end of one visit and never had another symptom since.
Dude, that's awesome, man. That's a great story.
It was an amazing story.
Yeah. So so then you got them from 4 days old, right? You can say you got them coming in your clinic from 4 days old to our adult population or a geriatric population as well. I want to ask really quick, in Louisiana, is there direct access? Do you guys have direct access in Louisiana?
We do. And
Okay.
it seems to be a little bit less restrictive than it is for Texas, thankfully.
Yeah, for sure.
So the thing is, right now, we can see a patient with direct access, but let's say if they have Medicare, we won't be able to do any treatment for that patient until we have the script from the doc. So I can do my initial evaluation, and then let's say if they have Medicare, I will definitely send that over to the doc and then have them review it, send me back a script, and then sign that plan of care for me. If I have those things in place, then I can be all right with Medicare. But for the eval, I'm covered under direct access for sure.
Awesome. For the viewers, the people who are wondering what direct access is, right? So when you talk about direct access, in Texas, I'm gonna talk about Texas for a minute, Remedios, because that's where we're at.
Sure.
But for our viewers who are watching or listening, direct access, what happens now is that as physical therapists here in Texas, before, I don't want to say 2020, I can't remember the exact year, you weren't able to go see a physical therapist until you had a doctor's referral. So you go to a doctor, the doctor gives you a referral. Say, I have some pain in my shoulder. You go to the doctor, they give you a referral. You take that referral to the therapist, to your clinic, the PT clinic, and then they're able to start the process. So now in Texas, there is direct access now where if someone's experiencing pain, they can come into the clinic now without the doctor's referral, and they get 10 days, right? So it's a little limited. It's not complete direct access where it's absolutely can come in like a chiropractor. If you're feeling some pain, you walk to a chiropractor's office and they can start right away. No referral, they can start going right away. In Texas, laws have changed. We have some direct access. We have those first 10 days. After that, we have to request a referral, and there's a whole other process. In Louisiana, you guys have full-on direct access where patients can come to you, right? You can start those treatments if you need. And the only exception, like you said, is Medicare, Medicaid, right? Would that be
Yeah, and there's some other provisions, but mostly, we can get evals done, no problem.
Yeah, there's a lot more provisions in the Texas one too. I'm really trying to, lay it down really simple for everybody to understand in case they didn't know what direct access was. So let's talk about some of the athletes, man. So who do you have coming in? What's it look like? What's that population look like that you're treating there in your clinic, man?
So for the athletes that I've seen, mainly been some people from CrossFit, and I never did any marketing to CrossFit. Rather than I've just started with one CrossFit athlete. I helped them tremendously, and then they started to talk. This is how it happened, and so they starting to see some more now. The issues that I saw was interesting in these CrossFit athletes is that no one was actually teaching them how to properly squat. And that's not a knock against any of the coaches with CrossFit. I think they're an amazing community. I think they do a lot. I think so much better than sitting around eating potato chips. CrossFit 100%. Is a lot more healthy than that.
100%.
But in terms of some of the programming could be improved if they had some more remedial ways for people to learn the basic squat, especially before you go into loading. Because if we don't get in that stacked position, that does lead to more stress onto the joints, increased chance for back and disc injuries. So in relation to that, I think that some of the programming might be improved. Now, in terms for me, it's been good business,
right?
Because people are finding out that, I could learn how to use my body, and then they use that in a way that's kind of, now I can improve with my CrossFit and then load more and be healthy. So the way I do it is I really spin things into a positive and try to build them up from the ground up. And another potential issue that people have been having with getting into these type of activities is they have difficulty activating their glute muscles.
We see that a lot with glute activation and squats. That's pretty common, man. You'll see that a lot. You'll have athletes who will be lifting wrong so long. And I mean, there's some hip shifts that go on. Sometimes it starts in the ankle. Sometimes it's just like inhibition issues with really tight quadriceps and things happening in the front anterior chain the result in the back. And we see a lot of that, right? With that glute activation. Would you say that's pretty fair in the squat assessments that you've been seeing so far?
Totally. That is totally
Right.
fair.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's a unilateral issue. You'll see people shift to, their stronger side.
Right.
You'll see a little knee cave. That could be another thing. One of the screens that I've been doing, because it takes a lot of isolation to really get that down. I have patients sustain a bridge position for a couple minutes.
Right.
And I ask them afterwards, what muscles did you feel working? I've actually had a patient tell me that they felt it in their calves, which is extremely unusual.
Right.
And even now, I've gone as far as to go into the traditional MMT approach, manual muscle test for the glute, which is in the prone position, bent knee, raise.
Yeah.
And I will press down, and they will tell me, I feel that in my opposite glute. Well, how interesting is that? Sometimes we have these, we see these perception issues where they perceive the muscle working in the opposite side. You could palpate the muscle fibers and they may activate, but they may not actually have a mental awareness about what exactly it is doing. Right. And I've gone as far as to hook up tens to their rear end and then have them contract with that and actually use that as a way to get them to perceive that muscle a little bit differently. And that's been very helpful.
So what have you found has been kind of with CrossFit athletes? So I think these are really high level athletes, man. We're talking guys are in here, they're snatching, they're power lift. I mean, these are big compound lifts. They're really powerful. What's the biggest challenge you find when it comes to, hey guys, we're going to water this down a little bit, right? We're going to come down here. How do you break that down for an athlete? Because I think that becomes very difficult, because you'll see athletes, man, in all sports that always have this high level performance and expectation, right? Of grind, I'm going to push here and we're rolling up in here. And then sometimes, especially through the kind of the work that you're doing, you're going to have to talk to these athletes, right? And kind of talk about building it up. What have you, Remedios, experienced as the biggest challenge, and how do you overcome that, man? How do you get talking to these athletes?
So as we know, some of the biggest challenges, they're used to high load, high rep.
Right.
And then you tell them you're actually blowing past what the capabilities of the activation of your glute is capable of producing. You have to communicate that and say, this is throwing you off here. And to actually get it right, we have to take a few steps back.
Right.
So in order to do that, now, you have different levels. The TENS, or the neuromuscular electrical nerve stimulation, that's going to be a lower level. And then let's say if I have them in supine position and I have them hold a contraction, that's the level above that. Right. And then we start sustained postures, isometrics. I'm talking, they have to stabilize and prevent movement before they're able to effectively produce it.
Absolutely.
That's another level. And then we can start talking about repetitions with your glutes and your clamshells and all the other variants that we know about, Captain Morgan's. All of these exercises are going to be geared towards building them up to utilize that muscle in the proper way. So they have to understand the process and where they are in that process, so that really ultimately, after you get done with this and they see the results, I've had no problem communicating that. And really, there's a lot of that. You see the light bulb go off with these people, because they realize, oh wow, it was never me to begin with. I needed to go back and work on these steps before I continued with my lifts.
Right. Like reset the mind, right? Motor program, right? It's motor programming, getting that neuro re-education, right? Kind of firing those glutes again, thinking about those muscles. And I think ultimately at the end of the day, I experience with the athletes as well, is when you start to progress them through that, then their lifts are ultimately better. Their PRs and those maxes are actually coming up, because now they're using more than just 4 or 5 muscles. They're using 8, 10, 12, right? They have really good technique. really good form and we start building a lot of strength. And I think that's how people really become believers, man. When it comes down to breaking these things into smallest bits. Sometimes it's not really about, hey, let's try to get out as many reps as we can, and it'll come eventually. Oh, those glutes will fire, eventually. Yeah. No, man, you keep programming the brain over and over again with the same input, with the same output, with the same external feedback, and that loop it goes, and it's a real loop in our bodies, right? This external feedback loop that comes from the outside environment to our brains, and it goes over and over and over, and then we're stuck. Right. We're stuck. And then it starts, the pain and this and that. And then, this is where we start, where we come into business, man. Right. And we start kind of fixing that up. So that's great. So, on average, man, what are you seeing more of? Are you seeing more backs, shoulders? I mean, I would imagine snatching, these kind of overhead, these really ballistic lifts. What are you seeing more in your clinic?
So I've seen, a little mixture between sacroiliac joint issues, low back issues, shoulder issues as well. Mm-hmm. I had one athlete come in and they told me I can't overhead press more than 35 pounds. And they demonstrated, trying to do something lighter than that, and demonstrated that they weren't able to lift even 20 pounds.
Right.
So what I did was I looked at the posture. It's just as simple as assessing alignment. Sometimes you see that shoulders forward. Well, I've worked in Lake Charles. I picked up some interesting skills with techniques that they teach there in terms of functional manual therapy.
Right.
We would apply a pressure to the pec minor if it was tight, and we have the patient go through a motion. Almost kind of reminds me of like myofascial release with movement, right. But mm-hmm. This is a little bit of a deeper technique. Right. We would do this for the pec minor, and then I would assess the shoulder position afterwards, and oftentimes it would be improved. If it was, then I retest that individual's ability to do an overhead press. The same athlete that had trouble overhead press 20 pounds now took this 45-pound bar, went overhead, no problem, went for reps.
Wow.
No problems or pain.
Incredible. Yeah. It's incredible. And I think those are those things, and again, not to knock trainers or the coaches in those areas, right? But, a lot of times the solution is you have to think about this point from the coaches, right? And you think in a CrossFit, they have like 15 or 20 people at a time. It's going to be really hard to keep eyes on 15, 20 people running through a pretty high ballistic workout, and they're running through. But I think this is where, the education and really understanding, right, what separates, a doctorate, a PT, a PTA from our average coach and trainers, right? And then it's like educating the client and then helping educate the coaches. So have you been able to maybe get into the population with the coaches? I know I've talked to a couple of technique coaches, some of my baseball players, some of my football guys, they have position coaches, or a pitching coach. And some of the best things you can do is team up with those coaches, right? And you can ask coach, hey man, so what are you noticing from little Johnny? And we'll say, hey man, you know what? He needs a little more oomph. He's a little tight. I need him to loosen up. And then I'm able to work with the coach, right, on a good mobility program with this pitcher and get him out there moving a little more. Or they may say, hey man, you know what? He comes in really tight. Maybe it's lifting too heavy, because they're on a plan too, right? And they kind of work through. Have you been able to reach out to some of these coaches and maybe build that relationship, that bond, and kind of talk to them through some of the things you're doing with them?
I'm actually in process with a couple of my high schools. This is interesting. Mm-hmm. I have my high school coach from Grace Christian School, which is actually right around the corner, maybe I'd say about 3 or 4 minutes from here. And literally right across the street, I'm going to have a meeting with the coach from the bigger school that has a football program, track program, and a lot of these different things. Like they have a whole cross country thing as well. So I'm working on developing some of those. The one from Grace Christian, I have more texting with more. And there's also a person who's working with throwing athletes in town. They have a really good facility for training people to throw. So this is going to be baseball, and they're going to be, loading up. They have all of the equipment to analyze movement and everything.
Awesome.
Whole facility here. And this guy is a coach, but he opened up his own facility for throwers specifically for that. So he's actually had a conversation with me, wants to bring me on to help him with assessment for certain things, and we're kind of in the talks with those guys.
Yeah, man, I think that's awesome. Being able to take the knowledge base that we have, right, and share it with the community in those senses, right? I think it adds value to what we do, and it really separates, right? Kind of really separates us into with the education and the know-how. And then most importantly is with all this knowledge, it's all about teaching, right? It's all about sharing and learning. I think being able to involve multiple trainers, multiple athletes and different coaches in that process, I think it's the best way to build awareness into our field, man. And it kind of works out. So that's great, man. Good luck to you. I see that can work out for sure. With that, man, I just want to say, thank you so much, dude, for coming on. I appreciate the time. I just want to give a quick shout out, let everybody know that your company, it's the Therapy Co, right?
Yeah, Therapy Co.
Therapy Co, located in Alexandria, Louisiana, with Dr. David Remedios, man. So, brother, I appreciate you being on, man. I know it's busy, it's the middle of the day, the schedules get crazy, but I want to say thank you so much, man. I really do appreciate you coming on, taking the time, and we'll be in touch, man. Sooner than later, hopefully, brother. So I really appreciate it, man. Thank you for coming on, and we'll talk soon.